Welcome to hour number 2 on a Friday on Hashtag Daily K with your host, Peter Bint. How much do you know about K-food? How much hanshik have you eaten?
We invite you into the world of Korean food, of course, including the history and culture of it. We'll introduce trendy foods and famous restaurants on
Dish of the Day
with Chef Ryan.
Aren't all big holidays about the food and about the clicking of the fingers in a little festive way? I love it. Ryan's here. It's Chuseok, and yeah, food, and more food. Surely in your country, whatever the big festival or holiday period is, it must be associated with food in some way, like Christmas and the Christmas dinner in the UK and Thanksgiving in the US. Is there any festivals out there that aren't associated with food? I'd be really keen to find out. How are you doing, Ryan? You look like you're in a happy, jolly mood.
Yeah, no, it's a holiday. The weather is gorgeous today. I'm going to be on the farm later with some friends and
nice.
And just grilling up some stuff. And yeah, man, it's a happy holiday.
It's fabulous. We got the typhoon out the way. I'm glad that was early this week, because if that was over the Chuseok weekend, that would be a real dampener.
Oh man, it was dark out there.
Were you all right on the farm? There was lots of winds and rains.
You know, we got lucky.
Nice.
We have this like tunnel that we grow hops on one side and long beans on the other. And some of the storms earlier in the year in rainy season, it would get knocked over.
Oh dear.
But the typhoon didn't knock it over because we really got missed around here.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. It was just like quite a lot of rain, but not crazy compared to what we had earlier this year, right? It is the Chuseok holidays today, Ryan. So you don't go and see any fam or anything, you know, they're back in the States and stuff. So how do you usually spend Chuseok? Like,
kind of relaxing, I suppose. Yeah. In the past, you know, I lived with some Korean friends or their family, and I remember getting up and they would, on the actual holiday, which is tomorrow, right? Yeah. That was special. You know, they put on their traditional hanbok, or their traditional dress, and open the doors and windows of the home. You know, I guess it's letting the good spirits in and the bad spirits out kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And the table was set with amazing foods.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. And then do the bowing, and sometimes they'd invite me in to join them, you know, and you know, especially they have pictures of ancestors up on the table. And,
oh wow. So you got to see that firsthand, what it's like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because for some foreigners who, you know, live here or visit, certainly, it can be a complete foreign concept. They don't know what's going on because they're not part of a Korean family, right?
Right, yeah.
But if you get an opportunity, and sometimes there are nice friends that might invite you for their family's Chuseok, it's really interesting to get a peek behind the curtain.
Absolutely. It's a special day. Yeah.
Any Chuseok foods in particular that your favorite, Ryan?
Well, actually, the one we're talking about today is pretty darn good. But I love everything related to food. Yeah. Really.
Today's food, like Ryan said, it can be associated with Chuseok. Maybe not exclusively. Like, in the West, I'd say turkeys definitely have that association with Thanksgiving and Christmas, right?
Oh, yeah.
At Chuseok, maybe songpyeong, that kind of moon-shaped rice cake filled with like maybe the sesame seed and stuff like that. Maybe that's really associated with Chuseok. But the other dishes, I'd say you wouldn't necessarily think immediately, that's definitely just Chuseok, right? There's a lot that can be eaten all round.
That's often on the Chuseok table.
And the side dishes, you know, that are always there, can be there and can be different by family.
Isn't it? Because it's about what your ancestors loved, right? That becomes the tradition. But what we're talking about today, this is something that anybody in the world can make really easily. You don't need special ingredients. So many of the things we talk about here on the show, you need something that is uniquely Korean or at least Asian. This is something that I don't care who you are, where you are, you could make this and you could love this.
There's no excuses today then.
Really. I mean, who doesn't like crispy edges, crunch, crisp, you know, a little bit of flour, a little bit of water. You know, we're going to help you with recipes today. We're going to tell you all about so many different kinds of these. But Peter, what is it? What is our topic today?
Today is the Buchimgae.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We talk a lot around the holiday time and we say the word chon a lot on the show, right? So is there like a big difference, or is it just another name for the same kind of thing, a chon, a savory pancake, how I've described that before on the show?
Very good question, Peter. Okay, so I contacted some Korean chef friends just to be absolutely sure, because I want to make sure I get the right information to everybody.
Yeah.
So if you imagine a Venn diagram, right? So the big circle is Jeon.
Okay.
All right? And then inside of that circle is Buchimgae.
Buchimgae is therefore a type of Jeon, we could say.
Yeah, you can definitely say that. Now, what's special about Buchimgae is that it is in a shallow pan, and you need a little bit of oil. You don't have to deep fry it, but you need a little bit of oil to get those crispy edges.
What oil would we kind of traditionally most use here?
Normally here would be soybean oil.
Okay.
Yeah. But any vegetable oil would be fine. And then the other ingredients could be so many different things, and we'll show you some different variations. But this is a savory pancake. Often you'll see it on menus as pajeon, which is onion jeon or onion fried thing. But really, even though they're calling it pajeon, sometimes it's all seafood, or also they're all buchimgae. And that's because buchim is like a verb to pan fry, right?
Ah, yeah.
Right?
전을 부쳐. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
okay.
So that's the origins of the word there. So we'll get into some pictures, some recipes, some variations of buchimgae, but you guys can totally make this anywhere you are so easily, and I guarantee you'll love it.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that's a good point. You're probably not going to see buchimgae on a menu too often, that word itself, buchimgae, right?
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, you will see chon and, like Ryan said, pajeon a lot on there, or even like 해물 pajeon with the seafood version, but not buchimgae.
It's like pajeon won the vernacular, right? Pajeon just kind of became the word that everybody started using.
Yeah.
But it's used. It should just be for the onion one, right? Because it's the onion pancake, and we'll show you pictures of that one too, and how to make that one as well.
I've seen, I don't think I've been to very often though, maybe once or twice in my whole 12 years or 13 years in Korea, Jeon kind of restaurants or Jeon places where you can go for a little meal and a drink, usually makgeolli with it. I've seen them called jeonjib. And they'll often just give you a whole platter of different little chons.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Koreans would traditionally call some of those buchimgae, like maybe the fish ones and stuff like that, tongtaejeon and stuff like that.
Buchimgae is usually more of a pancake with more ingredients in it, whereas jeon would be maybe just a fillet of cod or pollock or just maybe a slice of pumpkin, like sweet pumpkin, in
I
the
love
batter.
That's good.
And that's jeon. And Korean chef friends over the years here, sometimes they would say, oh, here comes Chuseok. I'm going to be in that little kitchen frying all this stuff all day long.
Yeah.
It's often not looked forward to by the folks doing all the cooking.
Yeah.
I would probably love it. I'd probably get into it. But definitely the oil, we don't do that a lot here. We don't eat a whole lot of fried stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Traditionally in Korea, this was a special thing. Flour was a special thing. Just having wheat flour was kind of special until, 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah, and you're right. That's to be said. There are many housewives who dread the Jeon kind of factory line where maybe one of the housewives and their sisters and sister-in-laws all involved, is kind of turning over those little things in the egg.
You need a vent hood to take that out of the house. Yeah.
The smell, you can smell in apartments, right? And I heard, and this is, I guess, quite a negative downside, if you don't have the vent, and even with the vent, it can really cause long-term health problems if you're doing that twice a year.
Sure.
Breathing in all that oil and stuff.
Yeah. But it's a special thing. It's only at these special times, that folks are doing all this. And the reason we're harping on this so much is because you should see the amount of jeon that gets made for these holidays. There'll be so many different variations all around. And we mentioned one time on the show about pajeon and makgeolli on rainy days. say two reasons, right?
Yeah.
One is that the sound of the rain, okay, mimics the sound of frying the pajon or the buchimgae or the john, is like the sound of the rain.
Sure.
But I would argue that it's actually, if it's raining, the farmers aren't so busy. They can't be out in the field doing so much. So it's a good time to eat heavier food, which makes you sleepy, and have a little makgeolli, which also makes you sleepy, and then take a nap.
You can't work anyway.
Right.
So why not?
Why not rest and enjoy?
Today's star of the show, Buchimgae. I hope you're understanding. That's a really good way to think about it, I suppose, is that it's a more of a pancake with different ingredients, the Buchimgae, and then the bigger family of chon and what we just call chon by itself are those little individual, maybe bite-sized bits of pumpkin or fish. We'll talk more about it. We'll show you some photos so you can understand exactly what it is.
Welcome to Arirang Radio.
If you are in Jeju,
88.7 in Jeju City.
88.1 in Seogwipo City.
101.9 in the Daejeong area.
Arirang Radio.
We're back for part 2, Dish of the Day, with Ryan in the studio talking about Buchimgae today, the savoury pancake. And I guess, then I should describe savoury pancakes as Buchimgae. John, if I say is savoury pancakes, is a little misleading because it's a bigger family, isn't it?
Right. That's the encompassing.
How should I describe John then? It includes savoury pancakes, but also other random things dipped in egg and flour.
This is true. I guess, yeah. You might have egg only with John.
Okay.
You might have flour and water only.
No.
You might have a combination of them.
Oh dear. You've got kanja John as well.
Right. The thing with John, though, is
Potato.
it's usually a whole ingredient. No, you can't say that either because
It's too many, except John is too broad. I don't like that term.
I just got to go back to school and get a PhD in John, and then I'll come back and we'll sort it all out.
Because now I'm thinking that's a widely spread misnomer. Like everyone often says John, Korean pancakes, but it encompasses so much more, doesn't it? So Buchimgae is the true savoury Korean pancake. And I did see, I think it was Breaker saying, I love the chocolate pancakes and maple syrup pancakes. That's not what we're talking about at all today, right?
True. Yeah. I was talking to my folks on the way up, and I remember when my dad was here, he was like, everything's kind of sweet. And I was like, oh yeah, a lot of food's sweet. The funny thing is this pancake that we're talking about is not sweet. So a lot of other Korean dishes have quite a bit of rice syrup or sugar or something like that. But pajon or buchimgae is totally savory. Rarely, I don't see sugar in any of it. Have you had any buchimgae there?
No.
And the dipping sauce as well is not sweet. It's just soy, maybe some vinegar.
Exactly.
The makgeolli is the sweet part, I guess. The beverage often enjoyed with it. Right.
Yeah. And in the one with the little sweet pancake, sweet pumpkin. The pumpkin itself is nice and sweet.
True. Or sweet potato.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're good. I really like those. Yeah. We got some messages to read out as well. This one from Jay Lee saying, sometimes us Americans can make mashed potatoes with cheddar and jalapeno peppers and make a kind of crispy John from that in a way.
Totally. That would classify as a John. Yeah.
Okay, that's
or
good.
Possibly even a buchimgae if you made it nice and flat like a potato pancake.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Corn fritters could be a John or a buchimgae.
Corn fritters, because I'm not familiar with that. Are they similar to what you can sometimes get in the Thai restaurants, like these little pancakes with the sweet corn in? They almost just look like little Johns.
I'm thinking of the American Southern style corn fritters.
What is that?
Well, you got a little bit of cornmeal, which is like
so
a
not
coarsely...
the actual corn bit, like little bits.
You'll have those too.
Oh, okay.
And usually some sugar, and something to help it puff up, like baking soda, baking powder.
Okay.
A little egg as well.
Yeah.
And they could be deep fried or pan fried. They're just corn cakes.
That sounds
corn
nice,
fritters.
doesn't it?
Oh, they're so good with a little butter and honey. Leon says, my favorite is kimchi John. By the way, which could also be called kimchi buchimgae.
Yeah, because that's flat like a pancake,
Same
right?
thing. It's just, I guess it just gets shortened to kimchi jon. Even those frozen ones taste good nowadays.
Really?
And then got a question for me. Do Twigim and John use the same type of dough? If yes, I guess you can make both at the same time. Yes. Well, there's all different kinds, and some of them will use egg, and some of them use just flour and water.
In the supermarkets, though, don't they sell separately, like Buchimgae?
Oh, yeah, big time.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they sell, is it Buchimgae or just the normal karu, the
Yeah.
flour we're talking about
You know,
here,
the
right?
Twigim has more starch in it, come to
Okay.
think of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, for these things we're talking about, the Buchimgae, you don't have to have potato starch or cornstarch to it, but it's definitely going to make it more crispy. So feel free to add a bit to it.
Yeah.
And then on the John side or the Twigim side, yes, it's going to have a lot more starch to it because you're having a thinner layer of it around the ingredient that you're frying, and you want it to be able to get really crispy.
Yeah.
So,
I just remember when I was in the UK growing up, and my mum would always have this bag of Buchimgae, and this was before I could speak Korean or read Korean, sorry. And so I'd just know which one was which, because on the front of that there'd be like a deep fried prawn on the front, and that's the one she'd use for deep frying.
young Peter.
Yes, in the kitchen, milling about. Breaker says, well, Chef Ryan is a chef, so of course talking about the food rather than the spiritual aspect of the holiday. Yeah, we hope we've covered a lot of Chuseok's meaning in other episodes, but today it's all about the foods that we're going to associate, right?
Yeah, well, we've got there's the obangsek, which is often used in Korean food on this holiday. The obangsek I always thought was really interesting because you're using these 5 colors to represent. You're also, for the Chuseok holiday with the food, you're supposed to have something from the land, something from the sea. You're balancing forces. The obangsek, or the 5 colors in the food, relate to different organs in the body and different functions to balance your health as well. So.
Yeah, I don't know even how many kids these days, the younger generation, realize that, when they're eating things and
Probably
stuff
not.
like that.
I found it when I first found out about that stuff. I was like, this is so cool. In America, we have Thanksgiving, we eat a turkey. We make the things that we remember having when we were growing up. That's it. But there really is a lot of interesting information about the holiday we're...
Okay, why don't we show a photo of I guess, representative Buchimgae. This is the one with the kind of sweet pumpkin that we were talking about earlier, that you can, as we mentioned, do like a little John, like a little medallion almost. But this is when they're cut into little strips, right?
Yeah, so this one is called holbak Buchimgae, all right, which... Now, that translates as pumpkin. There is a type of considered a pumpkin here in Korea. It is actually more like a green squash, or it's often called a Korean zucchini.
Yeah.
You could totally just do this with zucchini because I've not seen this particular vegetable in other parts of the world.
No, it's good though. It's so delicious and it's cheap.
It's buttery and it's so cheap.
Yeah.
All year long you can get it for like $1 or $2.
Yeah.
Right. And this, it looks like it has some egg in this one, but all you need is flour and water, and then a little bit of salt, and then you julienne, or you slice these into like those little matchsticks, right? And fry it up. And so you need a shallow pan and a good deal of oil. And you can practice your flipping skills, if you want to try to toss it up in the air and flip it around.
It's not easy compared to like a British style of pancake, because that's really light and you can flip it easily. This, because it's got the ingredients, I feel it often breaks apart when I do it.
The trick is to not have your heat too high, so that it'll cook through the middle a bit before you try to flip it.
Okay.
And then you'll have a spatula and you can peek, and make sure it's getting crispy on the bottom. But if your fire's too high, it'll start to brown before it's solid enough to flip. And then you break it.
That's the problem we always have in my household, especially with kimchi-jeon. I don't know if that's different in any way, or maybe it's just my wife puts the heat too high. It just burns before it gets cooked through, and so it's a bit soggy in the middle, and I don't like that. I'm sorry.
Right, yeah. No, you got to have the heat a little bit lower.
Okay.
I like to start with a high heat and then immediately turn it down, because when you put in those cold ingredients, think about your pan. If it's a thin pan, it's going to get cold really fast. So it's okay if it's really hot in the beginning.
Okay.
But then turn it down. I use my ears a lot when I'm frying things like
really?
this. When the bubbles sound really close together, then it's probably time to flip or turn down your fire. When it sounds more like bigger bubbles, then it's doing all right. It's just doing its thing. Just chill.
See, that's what a true chef does. I've never used my ears when I cook at all. I could be listening to music for all anyone knows. Leon says, I love the dipping sauce too. I have to dip it when I'm eating John. It tastes so much better. And like Ryan said, it's not like some sweet sauce usually. In that photo that we showed just a little while ago, the main base there is soy sauce, right? Usually.
Yes, soy, vinegar, maybe some gochugaru or Korean chili flakes, and some sesame seeds, toasted sesame seeds. But just the soy and vinegar will get you there.
Yeah.
I've seen folks throw in some diced chilies if you like it spicy.
Yeah, I like to have some onions in my raw onions as well.
Like scallions, right?
Yeah, that's good. Or even like actual onions, right? Just some chunks of that.
Yeah.
And if it's raw, like as long as it's not too spicy.
It just kind of brightens it up a bit.
Yeah, and you have a little crunch with your Buchimgae at the same time. Oh, it's so good. Moving on to this one, which... Yes, this is
the one you're talking about. And look at those little burned edges, just like you were saying you get at home.
You can't really avoid that, I feel, right? Sometimes.
Right. Well, this one's different because, often this one's kind of got big pieces of kimchi.
Yeah.
But usually when I see this one, it is almost like tiny pieces or even blended.
Yeah.
It's more similar to a Western pancake in that regard. There's not as many crunchy bits.
Yeah.
But in this photo, it looks like they have used some bigger leaves.
It's more homemade, it feels.
Yeah. And you get those crispy edges. But often when you find this one, it's not as crispy as a lot of the other ones because the batter is more smooth.
Yeah,
than the other
it gets
ones.
a bit watery with all that kimchi in there.
Totally.
Is it difficult then to make this crunchier? Is that why it's maybe like that? Or?
No, I don't think any of these are very difficult.
Yeah.
But managing your heat. Also, if you've got an iron skillet, it's such a great way to go on these because they retain so much heat. It has a thick layer that holds in that heat, so you get that pan to the perfect temperature and it'll hold it as you pour in those cold ingredients. The temperature of the pan's not going to drop down as much because it's holding so much heat inside of the pan.
And as long as you've got a decent amount of oil in there, it's not going to stick to the pan too much.
Right. Non-stick helps out a lot if it's your first time making these, just like most folks, use a non-stick surface to cook their pancakes. I'm a big fan of iron skillets, but those they take years to get them seasoned in to where they really don't stick.
Really?
So, yeah.
And this, in terms of the kimchi, John, it's just the same water, flour, bit of salt, maybe. Do you even need the salt? I don't know. Kimchi's quite salty sometimes.
Right. With this one, I wouldn't add salt, actually, because kimchi probably has enough to it. 1-to-1 flour and water will get you there.
And then just regular kimchi, whatever you got in the fridge, basically.
Well, often it's more the sour kimchi. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen it with both, but I wouldn't use a really, really fresh kimchi with a kimchi John or
you wouldn't get
Buchimgae.
much flavor in it then,
Exactly,
right? Yeah. You're not going to use like gochujang, which has not been fermented at all. Yeah, you're right. Like, I feel like when you put kimchi into any of the dishes is when it's like gone a bit too mature, right? Sometimes to have as a side dish, you put it into a jjigae or whatever.
Well, and I learned years ago when they give you that sour kimchi and you're out having grilled meat somewhere.
Yeah.
You put that sour kimchi on the grill or on that griddle.
Yes.
It changes and becomes this amazing thing.
With the pork fat usually like dripping down. It's brilliant, isn't it?
I'm a sucker for that. And that's something that's hard to find if you're not here with us on the peninsula. But if you ever find sour kimchi, try it out. Grill some of it up. Just fry it. Yes, in pork fat, it does help.
So much.
But wow, it changes and becomes something really interesting and amazing.
Wonderful Life saying, I just love John, and it is easy to love. And it's easy to find a John that you will like with one of your favorite ingredients. Much like deep fried twigim, depending on what's inside, you'll find something that suits you.
Music that you wanna dance to. Arirang Radio.
We're back for part 3 dish of the day already with Chef Ryan on the first holiday for Chuseok. Ryan has been kind enough to come in, but you did avoid the traffic. There was like none on the roads.
Yeah, I got here in 1/3 of the time.
Really?
1/3. I was
That's the
flying.
difference? Oh,
I
my
wasn't speeding.
goodness. No.
Mom, I wasn't
Wow.
speeding.
Driving safely as always.
Yes, but yeah, I got here in 35 minutes, man.
And it usually takes like an hour and a half, something like that.
The past couple of Fridays has been busy out there.
Oh my goodness. I wish every Friday was a holiday then. Loads of messages coming in. Leon, I feel you. I was saying this earlier as well, but Leon repeats my point. It looks so crispy in the photos. It's hard to make it so crispy at home. Does Chef Ryan have some kind of tip or life hack for that? And in the song break, I feel like maybe it's against your morals as a chef, but you came up with a great life hack that I think will work 100% of the time.
Oh, you're going to make me share that on the air? Okay,
That's
all right.
really
all right.
good, Ryan.
Jeez,
Seriously.
Okay. Well, we're talking about those air fryers that everybody has. When everybody started getting these air fryers, I was like, these gadgets. We don't need more gadgets. It's just it's not a fryer. It's a high-powered convection oven.
It was great marketing.
It's a hot fan. Okay.
It was amazing marketing because when I first heard that, I was like, what a great idea. You don't have to use oil and you're frying it, but it was just complete marketing, wasn't it? You're not frying it at all.
Well, okay. Hey, if it's helping people's health and it's making people happy, I'm all for the air fryer then. I will never own one because I have a high-powered convection oven that does the same thing, but most people don't have one of those, so it's nice to have. So, to make something really crispy, if you don't want to deep fry it, you know, and you want to use less oil, because if you've got a shallow pan and you put, say, 2 tablespoons of oil in, and then when you flip it, put another tablespoon or 2, and then lift it a little bit, make sure that oil gets underneath there and around the edges, it's gonna be crispy.
Okay.
You also have to eat it right away, right? You know, it's gonna be crispy for X amount of minutes until it starts to sog up again. But if it's not so crispy, now it might be too big to fit in your air fryer. You might have to cut it into some pieces. But I guarantee if you put oil in a spray bottle and spray the surface of it and then throw it in that air fryer just for a minute or 2, it's going to crisp up real fast.
Those things are so quick. Yeah, seriously.
yeah.
Things crisp up on the outside. That would be a perfect way. If you cook it and it's still a bit soggy, just chuck it in there. 1-2
Do not
minutes.
put the raw ingredients into the air fryer.
That's not going to work, is it?
Don't
All the
do that.
batter and dough.
You're going to have a big mess.
That's going to be awful.
Just got to throw that one out there.
Don't do that. Another message you got there, Ryan?
Yes, Silver Grady says, I will be making this for my Thanksgiving table. I make John with my 12-inch cast iron fry pan that was passed to me from my mother-in-law. It's totally nonstick. I got a lot of love for heirloom cast iron. I have my great-grandmother's.
Wow.
It's a
great-grandmothers.
great-great-grandmother's, actually.
What?
Yes, and it is better than any non-stick pan out there today.
What,
Like,
things just don't stick on it because of the time it's been used?
Not at all.
What?
It's been seasoned for 100 years, man.
That's unbelievable. Is that what happens the longer you use it? Like a good cast iron?
Well, you got to treat it right, you
Okay.
know. One of my culinary students washed it with soap and a
dear.
scrub, and I was like, no! So I had to rebuild the seasoning,
dear.
but I got it back.
So how do you clean it after cooking?
Nothing abrasive, and no soap actually. If there's little bits, on the edges, fingernails or a rag or in hot water.
Okay.
And then the trick is after you do that to sterilize it, make sure it's really clean, is you heat it back up again and rub it with oil.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, with oil.
Absolutely.
And then just wipe that off.
Yeah, there are elaborate videos online. If anybody wants an iron skillet, wants to know how to treat it,
Wow.
there's all that information out there. We don't have time to go into it today, but they're beautiful things.
One last message here from Siska in Indonesia saying, I'm hungry. And here we also do that style, maybe with leftover food, just frying it with flour and egg, and it becomes a random chon or
That's it.
Buchimgae. And here we use a different type of flour for the chons. There is a type of flour also that can make it crispier. I don't know about in Korea. As you were saying, maybe for things
Starch.
like tigim, you just putting in more starch and that'll make it even more crispy.
Absolutely. We do have some different types of meal or flour that make it less crispy. And I think we got a picture coming up here soon.
What is this one?
For those of you that might be more health conscious, you know, when you talk about John and Buchimgae and Pajon, you know, they're oily flour, you know, but this is made with buckwheat flour or memmeal.
It looks a bit kind of browny gray.
Yeah, and if you're a diabetic or you're just looking to have, you know, a little bit healthier grain in your diet than just processed, you know, white flour, buckwheat flour is much better at balancing your blood sugar, keeping that, you know, slow release of energy through the day after you have something like this. So health conscious restaurants, I've seen a lot of these open up more recently, that is all about memmeal. So you might have memmeal noodles, memmeal buchimgae, like this picture here, with some scallions in there. But it's not as crispy.
Yeah, it doesn't look as good. I'm sorry, it doesn't look as good. Is it like a kind of chewier texture?
A little bit. And there is some flour in there. If you go 100% buckwheat, it really won't hold together very well. Same thing with the noodles. If you see buckwheat noodles, Korean, usually there's probably 50% or maybe a little bit more flour.
Oh, really?
Or else they won't be chewy. They'll be they'll break too easily.
Oh, that doesn't sound like a nice texture. Yeah, it's very common to get a memmeal kuksu, especially in the summertime, you know. Yeah. You have them on the tray and then dip them in the kind of sauce. They are delicious.
Good
Buckwheat, I don't know about America, but in the UK, that's not an ingredient I think we use commonly. And just hearing it, I was like, oh, that doesn't sound buckwheat. What is that?
I think these days you can find buckwheat flour or milled buckwheat all over the world, really. It's pretty common. It's famous here from like the mountain area. In Gangwon-do up in the northeast.
Yeah, they got a lot growing out there as well, right? Do we have any other photos, Ryan? Oh, we got a pajon.
There you go. Yeah, now that's crispy.
Yes, and that's delicious with the seafood in it, right? Very common to have that with the pajon.
You know, this is probably one of the ones you'll find in restaurants the most because it has so much more oomph to it. So the places that say pajon, it's still buchimgae, you know, but let's not get too, you know, tripped up on the vernacular. They're all delicious, savory pancakes. And so restaurants that'll have makgeolli and pajon or buchimgae with this, they'll have this haemul or seafood version with shrimp. I've seen squid in there.
I've seen mussels sometimes put in there as well. Yeah.
Definitely some onions, definitely some chilies. And the trick on some of these, like, okay, the kimchi one we showed earlier and the pumpkin one and a vegetable one, you'll mix the flour, the water, and the vegetables together and then press them into the pan.
Yeah.
But when you're doing something like a pajon or buchu, garlic chive, buchimgae, you might throw the onions down first with the oil.
Okay.
And then pour the batter over the top.
Oh.
So kind of like when you do like a frittata.
Okay.
You know, a lot of times you'll start those ingredients first, you know, soften up things.
This certainly looks like it, doesn't it? The buchu one.
You'll soften up those ingredients, get them cooking first, pour the batter over the top of that, flip it, then add some more batter and flip it one more time.
Okay. I've not thought of that, adding more batter after you flipped it as well.
I'd see that mostly when folks use whole scallions in the pajon.
Yeah,
right?
Sometimes that's the
Lay
thing,
that
right?
down, pour the batter over, flip it, pour more batter over, flip it again.
That seems more like rustic, and I don't know, more kind of traditional to me.
It looks cool, and it's fun to make that way. Also, the onions help hold it together, so maybe you won't break that one if you do.
Yeah, when I'm flipping it over. It is a bit tougher to kind of chew off or bite off pieces from those whole scallion pancakes, but delicious.
We're running out of time, Peter.
We have
already?
run out of time,
oh, man.
Ryan.
Well, happy holiday.
Absolutely. You have a great Chuseok, and we'll see you next Friday. You can listen to Dish of the Day with Chef Ryan every Friday at 10 a.m. KST on #DailyK.